Well, good morning, the Okanagan, the island with Victoria, and, of course, Penticton and Kelowna. We are The Garden Show. Ken Salvio and Don Burnett are here to answer your gardening questions and just blabber away about gardening, because that's what we do. We love to talk gardening. Mm-hmm. We have just been through one of the nicest periods of late May rain that I've ever experienced for a long time. Maybe it's because we haven't had some for a while that I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I can't remember actually that much rain in the month of May in the past, other than I think about 3 years ago we had a season where we got right to about this time of year, and then it started to rain, and it didn't stop until about the 15th of July. Yeah, and it was just miserable. And I remember everything would go moldy outside, and the trees, the mountain ashes would get fire blight, and we had all kinds of disease issues. And we're just like, we don't even know what this is, because normally we don't get rain between like about the 15th of April and say the beginning of September, end of September. Which is not good. I don't like the drought. I prefer to have some blasts of rain.
No, I was standing. I actually took my shirt off and stood there and said, "Thank you, thank you," because this really, we need it so badly. A wheelbarrow, aluminum wheelbarrow. I've got 6 inches of water in an aluminum wheelbarrow. That's as good as it gets right now. We're awesome, going to start with the tips and plants of the week.
You betcha.
Well, my tip of the week is keep good records of your gardening each year. And I've maybe mentioned this before, but it's so important. And I found myself going back to last year's records and saying, well, when did I put that in? Was it successful?
Right.
Just even remember names of things that you planted last year that worked out well. And my last week's tip was make sure you label things so that you know what you got. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they do come in handy in regards to planting, the timing, and the variety of choices the following season. My plant of the week is Aquilegia, the columbine family. And I'll tell you, there are... When I grew up in the 60s, or in this industry, when I was a teenager, Aquilegia columbine was one of the early first perennials that I learned about, because it was started with an A, of course, and started at the beginning of the alphabet. And I just thought there was a couple of different colors and a couple of... there is just so beautiful. Aquilegia columbine is my plant of the week.
You betcha. That's a nice one. All right, I also have a tip and a plant this week. My tip of the week is that this cool weather is nice. A little bit of rain is nice, and it actually helps us catch up a bit on watering. I have noticed that when I dig a hole somewhere, I'm digging down and I've got about maybe a half an inch of moisture on the top, and then I get down below and it's really, really dry, just powdery dry. So I'm hoping that this extra rain will help us get that down a little bit deeper. And with automatic irrigation systems, the plants are, we get that extra water in, a little bit of irrigation. Now it's time to maybe shut that off or turn it off, skipping a day here or there, just to help to save some of that water. And also to note that when the temperatures are cool, plants really don't need that much water. So it's a temperature thing. When it gets hot, they need the water. When it's cool, they don't need the water. So save the water for the future when it does get hotter this summer. All right, now my plant of the week this week is the iris group. Of course, the irises are just showing off amazingly. Again, just like you're saying about how many different types of Aquilegias there are, boy, there are so many different types of irises. It's just amazing, and they are gorgeous. My favorites are, probably the bright yellow, or the white and yellow one is one of my all-time favorites, a big, high, giant one. And, of course, blues and whites. There's so many great colors, and they're fragrant and lovely. Super easy to grow, super drought tolerant, just a nice, easy plant and fun for all the gardeners. And they bloom right now, right about mid-May through to beginning of June, and they're beautiful. That's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com and Grower Coach on YouTube.
Ken, we almost did it. Yesterday, I'm driving around thinking, okay, what's my what's my plant of the week?
Yeah.
I was going to do the iris group.
Yeah.
Because, it's a huge group.
Oh,
there's bulbous iris, there's rooted iris, there's rhizomous iris, all sorts of different kinds of iris. And that's a great plant of the week. Perfect timing. Yeah. And we just about hit it this time.
Yeah,
after
the
all these years.
Siberian irises. There's another one that's kind of a totally different group. Yeah. And there's a whole raft of those.
I know. It's beautiful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have Ariel joining us. Good morning, Ariel.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Wow, it's gorgeous out there. I was taking pictures of my Dictamus albus.
Oh, really?
otherwise
Yeah,
known
nice.
as gas plants.
Gas
Very
plant,
unusual.
A little bit gassy, that one.
It's gassy.
Oh yeah, really, really. It's just absolutely. You know what? I'll send you a picture.
Oh, that would be
I'll send you a
great.
picture. I can't do it on my phone because I take it with my macro camera. So the reason I called is because you know what? I don't mind the little indigenous squirrels we have, but when they have babies all around the place, what they do is they come along and they eat the buds off the flowers. And they went after the little ones. They're trying it out for size, you know. And one of the beautiful sun patients we planted down to the nub.
Ooh.
You're talking squirrels?
Yeah, squirrels. I watched them. I watched them go after my my echinacea.
Might have to try some of that Bobex, that deer repellent. It works for rabbits and other rodents as well as deer. So that would be probably the best way to go. And because it's funny that with deer, they really are sort of picky on what plants that they eat. But other things like squirrels and especially those marmots, they really don't care so much what they eat. They'll eat anything the deer won't eat. They'll eat, and so just putting a little bit of that stinky stuff on them, unless you're using them for cut flowers, which isn't super helpful. But if they're not, and something you view from say 5 feet away or so, then you're good to go, because that stuff really does reek, but it does keep the animals away.
And who's having battles with slugs like I am? Oh my gosh, they're going after my hostas.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. Use that slug bait. That's the Safer's one, and you sprinkle it right down between the leaves there. Yeah.
Oh, right between the leaves.
Yeah.
Okay.
At nighttime,
okay.
In the daytime, sometimes they'll hide underneath. So you got to get it inside the plant, because they don't roam far from the plant, and even where they're feeding, sometimes they'll. It's not. It's like you don't get them when they're feeding. You get them when they're kind of hiding in the daytime, which is usually right near the center of the plant underneath. So if you can get it into the center of the plant, that generally helps.
Well, okay, I did get some of the ones that your dear friend there gave me, those PVC piping things, and they work pretty good. But I guess maybe I'm not putting it out often enough or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the slug bait, right? So just get it right into the center of the plant. That's where they go. But sometimes people will take a little board and set a trap. So you set a little, like a 6x6 piece of wood underneath or near the plant, and then put some of your slug bait underneath that, and then just leave it there. And then when the daytime comes, because the slugs will hide, especially when the temperatures get warmer, then they will skedaddle underneath that piece of wood to get out of the heat and have some lunch while they're there, and become paralyzed, because that product paralyzes them.
Yeah, and it stops them from eating, of course. And then, they just succumb to that. But it is a safe product. The iron is the active ingredient in the Safer's slug bait.
How come we never see them? How come we never see them die?
They shrivel up.
They shrivel up.
They're 99.9% water.
Oh.
So they just, when they die, they become
becomes
nothing.
like a little black
They become
stick.
nothing.
A little black.
Instead of dust to dust, it's water to nothing.
Yeah.
You guys are brilliant.
There you go. There you go.
There you go, Ariel.
Have a wonderful day.
You betcha. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Take care. Bye-bye.
Keep on slugging. That's what I say.
Keep on slugging. Yeah, slugs are an issue.
Oh, man. Sorry, Ken.
I was just going to say that Safer slug bait is so much better than the old stuff they used to have.
Metaldehyde. Oh,
yeah,
that was
toxic.
Ken, and we don't want to talk too much about these old chemicals because they weren't very nice, but metaldehyde was the biggest poisoning for pets out there. I used to get calls constantly from the vet back in the days, and asking me, sending me a little portion of a label. What do you think this was? Because the dog, of course, ate the whole package.
And
there was just a little piece of the label left, and so I'd go through all my catalogs, and I go, and sure enough, Green Cross slug bait with metaldehyde in it.
Yeah,
because it is a bait, and animals seem to really like that. And so, thank goodness it's gone. No more metaldehyde out there. And if you do have any metaldehyde, products out there, please dispose of them in the proper way.
Yeah, you can
in the
turn them
Okanagan here,
yeah.
you take them into the battery doctor.
Yeah.
The battery doctor will take all your old pesticides, label as long as there's a label on them and what they are.
Yeah, and there's often those pop-up recycling things that show up. Sort of like this. They go from community to community and pop up. I think there's even one in Lake Country coming right up this weekend, possibly.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they just pop up in the location.
Yeah,
and you can take old chemicals and fertilizers and stuff you're not using and turn them in, and it's great help.
It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Give us a call, folks, 250-862-2525 if you're calling from the Kelowna area. And if you're calling from the out of town, it is 881-888-780-4273. I've said it so often, I now forget it. But that's typical of me right now, Ken. But right now, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with the Garden Show after this short break. Well, it's amazing with the long days how quickly plants in the greenhouse and in the garden grow. The short days in the wintertime, I mean, let's face it, the sun is the motor for plants. I mean, that's the motor. That's the power behind the plants.
Absolutely.
And
it'd be nice to have a little bit more temperature right now. We're just a little on the chilly side. Some of our planters we planted, they started out just all excited, and then they stopped.
Yeah, well.
Now they're just sitting there, and they're turning kind of purplish color, and they're going like, what's going on here? The 5 degrees at night. It's a little chilly.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully they'll turn around.
I got a huge scare the other morning. I always look at the Weather Network on my app on the phone.
Yeah.
And I look ahead, 3 weeks and see. Well, 3 weeks. June 2nd was the 2 weeks. 2 weeks ahead. 14 days. 2 weeks was June 2nd when I was looking at this app, and on June 2nd in Kelowna, it said it was going down to 0 at night.
Yeah, I remember. I saw that myself.
Yeah, and I freaked out. What going on? I got all my plants out. Jeepers.
It could happen.
So it can happen. So I thought, well. So then I looked at Calgary, and it was 0 on June 2nd. I looked at Victoria, it was 0 on June 2nd. I looked at Penticton, 0 on June 2nd. Obviously, a computer glitch or something, or they just didn't enter something.
Yeah, but they update them every 4 or 5 hours, right?
The next halfway through the day, I looked at it and it was back to normal. It wasn't 0.
Well, they look and they go like, "Well, looks like it's going to get cold. We better, put it down because the charts say this is how cold it's going to get." And then by the next day, they go like, "Ooh, no, it's not going to get to 0, but maybe 4 degrees." And then the next day, well, maybe 5. So like tonight's supposed to be 5 degrees Celsius. So that's in Kelowna. That means at my house probably about 2 degrees or 3 degrees.
Oh boy.
So I was going to put all my tropicals out tonight, but I'm going to wait till tomorrow because the next night's supposed to be 8 degrees or something. You got to watch these temperatures.
I live in Hawaii because I've had my tropicals out now for 3 weeks.
Yeah, your tropicals are wishing they were in Hawaii.
Yeah. Well,
but no, they do good, and you're in a warmer spot than most of us, right?
Yeah, so, down by the lake.
Yeah.
So,
anybody on the hillsides or up in the surrounding areas, or even in little frost pockets, Glenmore can get really cold out in that area. They have that whole area is a frost pocket. So I just say be aware. Like all this work, to me, all the work is going through the winter. And then it's just this last week or two, and you got to get them out. And you're just going, should I put them out? After all this time that we cram them indoors and move them in and out and all that, I hate to lose them.
Well, Ken, the interesting is we do say, the farmers will not put their crop out until it's
June,
really
usually,
10 degrees Celsius at night. They just watch that because until it's consistently 10 degrees at night, they won't put them out. They do that because there could be, as you say, there have been frosts in the Okanagan on the 2nd of June.
Not long ago.
Yeah. And
7 years.
Yeah. So that can happen. So if a farmer's putting out 10,000 tomato plants,
oh yeah,
you don't want to take a chance.
No.
But for me, 3 weeks ago, I planted a tomato plant. It's doubled in size.
Yeah.
It's healthy as a horse. It's looking great. It's on the south side of the house, right against the wall.
Yeah.
It's happy as can be.
Happy as a clam.
But if I was a farmer, I wouldn't be doing that because you got 10,000 plants, and that's a little different than
those
one.
plants, like I think your succulents are tougher than the tropicals, like regular tropicals, right? I just think they are. I think succulents have this ability to survive a cold snap, at least like down to 5 or something. But the real tropicals, like from the Amazon rainforest and that,
no, they don't like it. But
no, they get pretty stunted.
I got all my Madagascar stuff out.
Yeah, Madagascar's it's such a desert there, but I think that it's surrounded by ocean, so I imagine it's pretty well protected. But interestingly enough, it seems to be the plant's individual metabolism that keeps it alive or not.
Well, it's a total experiment. I did bring my some of my very important cactus, my Lophophora and things in.
Yep.
When it was raining so furiously the last few days, I don't want to get them wet. That's more of a problem with them than being a little chilly. That if they get too wet and chilly, then pooh, they're done.
That's right.
We've got Claudia joining us. Good morning, Claudia.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
We are like 100%. Can you get any better than that?
All right. So I have a couple of questions. Well, one question really that leads into other things. I live in a complex where we have a lot of cedars, and we're looking at replacing them eventually as they're getting older and more brown. And I'm sort of wondering what would be really good for a cedar hedge, or for a hedge anyway.
Well, yeah, it's There's a few options, but again, the fire resistance thing is what people are moving towards. There's insurance. You have to check with your insurance and see what they're allowing for you to have and how close it can be to buildings. But plants that are evergreen but not coniferous evergreen is what they want, I guess. So that's, plants like, say, boxwood, for example, which is a broadleafed evergreen. And it's still evergreen, and it's, they're really a good plant. There's columnar forms that you can get. They're a little bit hard to get, super expensive, but really good option. And if
form?
Because what's that?
What kind of form?
Columnar.
Oh, okay.
So like pyramidal sort of thing, you could say. Something that's upright and grows narrow. They're really a pretty good choice depending where you live, because some of them do suffer from severe cold. Depending where you're located, they can suffer frost damage. But they're good because they're not as flammable. They don't have as much dead stuff in them. Other plants that might be good, except that, there's the prickly factor, like with pyracanthas, which, I don't usually recommend those because they're so wide spreading, and you can trim them, but they're quite a bit of work to keep them narrow, and they are so prickly, they're thorns. And
what about yews?
Well, yews will get eaten by the deer if they're anywhere in earshot of a deer. They're
Do you
gone.
have deer issues, Claudia?
No, not at this point.
Yeah,
but I suppose it could be coming.
If you put the deer in, if you put the ewes in, then sometimes the deer follow.
Will come.
But they're really an excellent option as far as drought tolerance and grows sun or shade. And I think there's still some fire hazard because they are coniferous. But it's a bit of a challenge for hedging. I think that we might be moving towards more deciduous hedges where they just are trimmed, or what I say to a lot of people is put up a physical, like an arbor or a fence or a screen and grow a vine on it or something like that. Develop an alternative to the old-fashioned hedge. Junipers are an excellent option because they're so drought tolerant and they are a replacement for cedars. Much tougher, but they're still a conifer, and I think it's not so much me saying not to use them because they're a fire hazard, but because the insurance companies, it's anything within probably, I don't know how many feet from your house, but it's probably like 8 feet or something. So that's a factor.
Ken, back in the day, we planted a lot of barberry, a lot of privet, a lot of Cotoneaster, that was a very standard hedge back in the Okanagan back in the day.
Yeah.
And then slowly the cedars kind of took over. What about those? Did deer get after privet, cotoneaster?
Not too much. A little bit on privet from time to time.
Yeah.
I think cotoneaster is pretty good. I haven't seen it being eaten.
Well, Claudia, that gives you a few options. We got another caller here, so we got to go to that. But
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Claudia. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Yeah, you bet.
Bye-bye.
And we're going back to we've got, Scott Austin, our buddy, has called in. Scott, how you doing, man?
Scott.
Don and Ken, how are you guys?
Excellent. Did you get some rain in Penticton and Summerland?
Yeah, in Summerland we got, what day was it, Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
33 millimeters.
Mm.
Ooh.
So that was a good rain.
Oh, yeah.
That might have actually achieved something.
Yeah, there's some penetration going on there.
Yeah.
You bet. So I was just, like I said to Ken, I took my shirt off and stood out there and just, woo-hoo.
Thankfully, it was
nobody was watching, thank goodness.
Yeah, and it was only your shirt.
And it's just my shirt, yeah.
But boy, the rain, I mean, we're at the point now in the Okanagan where even gardeners don't complain about rain in the spring because we really need it. But I don't know. I heard you guys talking about containers and things, and some plants didn't really. Most of the plants in the containers in my courtyard are not all that happy. They're not much bigger than when I planted them, which was quite a few weeks ago now. So. It has slowed things down a little bit, but
we could use some heat.
Rain is always good.
We could use some heat. This is very coastal weather we're having in the Okanagan right now.
It is. Yeah. You know what's loving it is the spinach.
Oh, yeah. Spinach is happy, and lettuce.
Spinach and lettuce and kale and all of that. They're just loving it. They're just soaking it up. And
the cilantro.
Temperature for them, but not so good for coleus and, sweet potato vine and all those really heat-loving things that we like to use in our containers. But
what do you think about the penetration that we're getting, like, from this rain? I guess we'll know now, like after a couple days of moist weather, is to go out and literally dig a hole and see what's going on. Yeah,
but it's surprising how we think it rained, but up until Tuesday or whatever, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I can't remember. But up until then, I don't think there was all that much penetration of moisture into the soil because it's dry.
I'm going to go back and check on, I think it was on Tuesday. We had a little bit of rain over last weekend, and I went out and I was dividing a few perennials at a property. And the soil was wet on the top, like it was actually wet, right? Yeah. And there was some mulch there, some nice compost. Yeah. And I had a 1/2 inch penetration into the compost. The compost was about 1 inch thick, and then the soil below that was like powder. And so I was digging out these perennial roots, and it was just the dust was flying, and they were fine. They weren't wilted or anything. They were all happy. So I took them out and I, reutilized them. But because of that, we had that really good dump. Was it just yesterday, right, or day before?
Yeah, there was another one yesterday.
Yeah, had a good
dump.
The
day before that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm going to go back possibly even today or tomorrow and just go and have a look at that same spot and see what's going on.
Scott,
the forecast looks the same as far as showers.
Yeah. Well, this is good. So, this is very, very good. I love it. Scott, we're going to have to take a short break here. And we do have some other callers, but we love it when you call in. Maybe you want to stay on the line and we can talk to the callers as well. Can we do that?
Well, I can stay on for a few minutes. I got to be somewhere at 9 o'clock, but I just want to mention one thing.
Oh, sure.
Coming up next Saturday at the Ornamental Gardens in Summerland, we have a tree tour with Douglas Justice, who is he's one of those guys who's probably forgotten more about gardening than I'll ever know. Just kind of like you two guys. He's the associate director of the UBC Botanical Garden.
Oh, nice.
He knows of what he speaks.
Yeah.
We've got 2 tours, one at 1 and one at 3 in the afternoon next Saturday. So you'll be able to tour the Ornamental Gardens with a real expert.
Wow.
And I'm really looking forward to that. So summerlandgardens.org is the website. You can get on there and get all the information and get your tickets there. But a real great opportunity to learn from an expert about the trees and some of the other plants up at
Wow.
the ornamental gardens. So,
That would be a good one to attend.
Yeah.
What are the times again, Scott?
there's one at 1 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock, and they're about 90 minutes each. And we do have audio sets for people who are coming on the tour. So.
Yeah, well, that sounds great, man.
fabulous.
Look at we'll mention that again, and I'm going to give it a shot, see if I can get there myself.
Yeah, I would love to get there
All right.
too. Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
And just one question for you guys before we get to our break here, and I have to run. But did you get your Santa Ana beans planted?
I did. They're about 3 inches high inside. I'm a little weary about putting them out with this chilly weather, so maybe maybe tomorrow. We'll see.
There we go.
That Gusto Italia line they've got some interesting things in that line of seeds. So
that's one of my favorites. That's for sure.
yeah,
Sounds
right
great, man.
Okay.
Good to
You
talk
guys
to
have
you,
a great
Scott.
Saturday,
Anytime.
and we will talk to you again real soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Scott.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
That's Scott Austin, Penticton, Summerland. He's the garden guru down there, the guy to go to. We're going to take a short break. We're a little bit late getting into it, but we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with the Garden Show after this short break. Well, we have a short segment here, but Linda is joining us from, is it the Kelowna Garden Club, Linda?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I got a question you probably answered 1,000 times that I missed. We've got a healthy-looking lawn, but we're starting to get more and more quack grass. Is there any special way other than just hand digging it out to get rid of the damn stuff?
Where's the quack grass? Is it in amongst other plants and whatnot?
No, in the lawn.
Oh, in the lawn. Yeah, there's not much you can do, and you're sure it's quack grass, eh? Couch grass. Yeah, okay.
It sure looks like it.
And it grows a lot faster than your lawn, and it's a thicker,
Yeah.
Probably quack grass. Grassy weeds in lawns are really hard to deal with. I mean, one thing we recommend constantly is to constantly be reseeding, overseeding with fresh grass seed. Do it at least once a year. Do an overseeding, top dressing, overseeding. And with that process, if you can get lots and lots of regular turf grass growing, you will sometimes fight off the extracurricular grasses. One of the things that can be done, if you're willing, is when the quack grass grows higher, a couple inches higher than your lawn, you can take a brush and brush it lightly with Roundup. But don't let the Roundup get down onto your lawn because it'll kill the lawn grass out too. Yeah. But if you just touch the tips of that, back in the day, way back, there was a turf grass wick thing that they used to haul behind tractors, and it would have Roundup in the wick, and then the grass, it would tickle the tops of the longer grass. And
it only kills what it touches.
It only kills what it touches. So anyway, that's something that's one thing you can do, and it's still available to you. But
hand digging it is always fun.
Yeah, I cut my teeth hand digging quack grass.
I actually love doing it, but you know what? I'd prefer it when it's in a nice loose mulch.
Yeah,
and and you kind of get one going, and all of a sudden you get this string, this root, and then you follow it, and you can it just all comes out.
Yeah, digging it out, hand digging it out of the lawn is very difficult.
Very difficult. Yeah.
Hopefully, we've been some help or not.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give it a try. Reseeding. We haven't done that.
Okay, dear. Yeah, just keep reseeding, introducing more turf grass seed and more turf grass seed, and you can fight it off that way, but it takes some time.
Okay, thanks, fellas.
You're welcome.
Good
Take
luck.
care. Yep, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
And we have for a couple of minutes here, because we're running out of time, but we've got Dan Bruce joining us. Good morning, Dan, from the wonderful Lake Country area. And how are you this morning, Dan?
Well, things are okay this morning.
That's right.
We've had moisture. We've had rain.
Nice. Yeah.
The rain, of course, came when I was helping a friend move a mattress.
Oh, fabulous. Isn't that the way it works?
Well, that's why it came. I'm glad you did that move, because now we got some nice rain.
Well, I've been teasing him for a while. I said, come back. We'll move the mattress again.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Exactly.
Last week you asked me about okra.
Yes.
And a lot of people they don't like okra because it's mucousy and
slimy.
It gets slimy.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. That's the solution to that problem is in the hands of the chef.
Oh.
You cut the base of the okra, that little sort of cup-shaped base part of it off And don't cut the rest of it up. What I do is I put it in the microwave for a short time, and then I lightly fry it in butter.
Oh.
And you get the okra as a nice vegetable without the mucus all over the place. And I would recommend that's the way to deal with it. But okra is slightly mysterious in its origin, but it's thought to be East Africa, including parts of Ethiopia. It is closely related to hibiscus.
Would that be drought tolerant then? Somewhat?
Somewhat, but if you want decent edible okra, don't starve it of water, because otherwise it'll go stringy.
Right.
And if you're buying okra in the store, get the smallest possible pods.
Right.
The big ones are over the hill.
Okay,
that good advice.
Interesting. We used to sell quite a bit of okra, but it was very customer specific. We grew okra, but specific customers would come in every year and buy it. It wasn't something, oh, where's your okra?
Right.
Same, kind of almost the same with eggplant, but on the other hand, okra was much more individual. Now, I have from my dear cousin Ross McLeod has given me some seed for, and I can't remember the darn name of it, but you would know it. It's a bitter melon or bitter fruit of some sort, and it's got a wrinkly skin to it.
Yes.
And I forget it starts with a G, I think. Guara or something like that.
It has a number of names. It's from the Far East.
Okay.
It has names in Chinese, and we one of the names that I do know for it is Karela, which is known in India.
Quora. 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 And that's what I have. I have a vine growing of that, Dan. And I thought of you when I grew up because of the many different things that you've
because it's
served.
Wrinkled and bitter.
Yeah, that's right. I thought of you because it's wrinkled and bitter. That's right. But because of the several times that we have dined at your home, you've always had something weird and wonderful to try. And I thought maybe I would surprise you and grow some of this and invite you over for dinner and have you eat some of this bitter melon. But cooked up properly or prepared properly, it's not bitter. But it is bitter, I think, if you just eat it raw or something.
Yes, so I'll come if the menu does not include salad.
Oh, you don't like salad?
Well, if the bitter melon's in the salad, then it wouldn't be cooked, would it?
Okay. Yeah, you're too smart.
At 73, I get smart, particularly around food.
I don't know. And you're creeping up on my age here. Very close, but you'll never catch up.
So this year, speaking of age, I will be 73.
Mm-hmm.
The octagonal barn at Fintry will be 100.
Wow, that's incredible.
On the 8th of June, we're having a birthday party for the octagonal barn.
Okay, and
a great
that
idea.
sounds similar to when your birthday is, isn't it?
It's close.
Yeah.
So that was a dairy barn? Is that the one you're talking about?
That's the dairy barn. It's the last multi-sided barn standing in the province.
And it was interesting. I remember you talking about it. I don't know when, years ago or something. But you were saying that the modern cows can't fit.
Well, it was built obviously in 1924, and at that date, the Ayrshire cow was quite a small creature. Selective breeding over the years has increased her size and consequently her milk production, so that if a modern Ayrshire were to go into the barn, she would not be able to stand comfortably in the stalls, in the milking stalls, because of where the manure trough is.
It's like a couple feet out of target or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But no, the old barn's still standing, and
well, that's an amazing thing, and the work that they've done out there to preserve that is great, Dan. We're going to have to run. One of the other things that we need to preserve is the last standing tobacco barn out there, and I hope that's going to get looked after. Anyway.
Well, that's been crying out for help for many years.
I know it has, and I would like to be maybe a part of at least stimulating something, spearheading something. Dan, we got to run. Good to talk to you. We'll see you again next week.
That's
hey, buddy.
That's
and if you're in town, pop by and have a look.
I will.
Okay, bud.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Take care.
Bye-bye now. Mm-hmm. And on that note, we're going to take one more break before the big break, and we do invite your calls when we come back with the Garden Show after this short break. Well, here we are, last few minutes before the break, the mid-show break. Ken and I are just excited at this time of year. Ken's very, very busy. He's very busy with his business. However, he always finds time to come in on Saturday mornings and talk to you folks about gardening. Because, and the neat thing for me is that he's so hands-on still that I can talk to him about certain things. You know what. I'll be constantly. I'll be out with a client because I do still consult and go into people's yards and whatnot. But I text Ken. Is this deer resistant? No. Yes. Sometimes we don't know. But it's really something. And it's all
nice to see.
Deer resistant is kind of a oxymoron. Really,
there's tons of things that are 100% deer resistant. There's lots.
Rocks. I didn't eat rocks.
Yeah,
they don't eat concrete.
Nothing eats lavender. There's certain plants, right? And Russian sage, and it's those strong herbally smelling plants that are usually left alone.
What if you plant a bunch of those amongst the things that you want to keep? Like
then they'll eat between them. Yeah.
Oh,
but the other factor is that the fawns, right? Yeah. The fawns that are out there, they don't 100% know what to eat or what not to eat. So they'll be going through a garden and they'll just be grazing on stuff, and some of it is like completely toxic to them, right? But they don't know. As soon as they bite it and that taste goes, and then they swallow it, and it gives them an upset stomach. Then they're right away. It's like they'll never touch it again.
They're smart enough to do that.
Oh yeah, that's how they got their memory is based on digestibility. So when they eat something, it's like, well, I can digest that. It wasn't too bad. I didn't notice. Then it's like it triggers their memory, and then they'll eat that for their whole life. Most adult deers already know that, you don't eat that. So that's the problem, is the juveniles out there that are sometimes eating things that we consider to be deer resistant. And so there's tons and tons of plants available that are good. But I always I rate them either 100%, 98%, 96, 92. Once you're below 90%, it's pretty much not deer resistant. But it's funny, like peonies, are often in that 90, 94% deer resistant. So in a lot of places, the deer just don't touch peonies. But I have seen them get eaten, right? So it's just that occasional thing. Or it's like a yucca plant, which you would think who would eat a yucca? I mean, it's like this stringy, leathery, the deer eat them. And they're actually only about 80% deer resistant.
Possibly the new growth is not so bad, is it?
I don't know. They chew in the wintertime. They chew them right down to nubs. Okay. So, that's... Barberry? Well, they don't eat barberries, but what the fawns will do is that when that new soft growth comes out, they just nip at the tip, and then they don't go back. So they don't keep coming back. But what happens is in the past few years, the deer are having twins every year now. So even though it was a kind of a miserable winter, they're trying to bulk up their population. So they come back quickly. That's
well,
for sure.
Our mutual dear friend, Mary Fabrice, has been replanting her garden, doing a bunch of work out there. And she put in a katsura, a weeping katsura, says on the thing, deer resistant, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. First night out, 24 hours later, she comes out and the damn thing is chewed up. Bambi.
Yeah, and trees are difficult because they're not a lot of really deer-resistant trees. Especially in the conifer end, because all the spruces and firs and all that stuff is fully edible. Just blue spruces. Blue spruces are pretty much bulletproof.
Even
Because
the new growth, or that soft new growth, I'd even eat that.
Prickly. Yeah, well, you probably could, because a lot of spruces have those edible tips that people do eat. But Picea pungens, and that's the key. If it's Picea glauca, that's a white spruce, and I'm pretty sure they get eaten by deer. But Picea pungens glauca, which is the prickly ones, they're just like needles, they don't get eaten. So, but it's only the blue forms. The green ones do get eaten sometimes. So, so it's something to do with the color of it as well. But there's not a lot in the tree form large plants that don't get eaten. With things like cedars, like in some of the western red cedars or cypresses, like cypresses are more deer resistant than cedars are. Cedars are often deer browse. But the thing with these large cedars, like western red cedars, for example, is that the deer will eat them as far as they can reach, but it's because it's such a humongous tree that eventually the thing takes off and becomes a tree, and the deer eat it up to that 5.5 foot mark or 6 foot mark, and then that's it.
Classic.
Yeah, and you cut off the bottom branches, and the thing grows, and it's fine. Yeah. But it's just it's the same with deciduous trees. It's just keeping them trimmed up beyond where the deer can reach.
I can just imagine the title of your new book. Oh dear, what do they and don't they eat?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh dear.
Thank you. I'm writing that down.
Yeah, there you go. I did notice out in the mission one time when I was showing some folks from Australia a few things, and of course they were so fascinated with our deer. It's like we were fascinated with their kangaroos and their koalas, and they just love their deer, but they just, oh my God, here they are wandering around the neighborhood. Aren't they beautiful?
Yeah, it's just a kangaroo that walks on all fours.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The head looks about the same. But anyway, there was a pyramid hedge, totally classically trimmed up, the deer's classic trim.
Yep.
And then at the base of all of a sudden, at the base of that hedge was some juniper. And it was just Calgary carpet.
Yep.
Okay. And it was going along there below the cedars. Those cedars were not chewed. They didn't want to walk on that Calgary carpet.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before too, that even stuff like that Nature's Gold mulch we use, that's the compost, and when it's fresh, it's really kind of stinky. And if you put that down, they don't like the smell of it, and they just don't hang around it. Well, but it's only when it's fresh, and then once it ripens up, once it unripens, or whatever you want to say, once it gets washed out a bit, it's not as effective.
Aired out,
yeah. So it's a trick, and deciduous trees are almost all fair game. There might be a couple out there that but so I don't always trust those deer resistant tags. What I do is I use my own experience, and I say,
that's what I say. You got to write a book, Ken.
Oh, I got that deer book. That deer book is half written right now.
Dear, what do they eat and what they don't eat?
It's hard to get the time these days, but it's coming. Maybe one day I'll retire or slow down a bit, and then I'll have more time to work on those things.
So I mentioned that, and I bet you I'm going to get a bunch of emails. Where can I get Ken's book?
Yeah, it's coming. I think I've been talking about several books I've been working on, and they'll be coming one day. Hopefully sooner rather than later.
You betcha. Now, we've got coming up a real exciting thing coming up. I thought Linda that was phoning in was Linda from the Garden Club. It wasn't, but it was a good call. We appreciate any calls because we love to talk to you folks. So do give us a call after the news break here. But the 27th Annual Flower Show, 100 Years of Growing. Location, Gushican Heritage Park, 1060 Cameron Avenue, Kelowna, and Saturday, June the 29th. So it is a month or so away. June the 29th, no entry fees for exhibitors, free admission to the gardens and the flower show, display of over 150 entries in horticulture, flower arrangements, and potted plants and children's categories. Speakers, demonstrators, workshops throughout the day, master gardeners available to answer gardening questions, floral art displays, art and craft vendors, and a walk and talk with Don Burnett.
Ooh.
Well, there you go. I get to go. I love doing that, Ken. It's something every year I do. I show the history of the Gushican Gardens and whatnot, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fabulous. It's going to be a fabulous day.
Can't forget, next week is the tractor show, the annual tractor show. And we'll talk about that after the break as well.
And the Flower Power Garden Tour is coming up.
Power Garden. Oh, man, everything's coming up.
It's
all
season.
Coming up. Roses, Ken.
Yep, you betcha.
Well, roses and other things, not just roses. But.
Some dandelions, too. But, hey, dandelions are delicious. So,
man. Too much fun. We do invite your calls, 250-862-2525, local here in the Kelowna area. And 1-888-780-4273 if you're calling from out of town, from the Victoria area, or listening anywhere online. We're going to take a short break here. We will be back with The Garden Show after this short break. Well, we're back with you for the second half of The Garden Show, happening to you every Saturday morning at this time. We enjoy being here. We don't always talk gardening, although this is a garden show. We talk, but then this ties in with gardening. This is the 23rd annual Okanagan Antique Tractor and Machinery Fair.
Right,
June 1st and 2nd. That's next weekend. This coming weekend, after this weekend. So, yeah, June 1st and 2nd, if you want to be more accurate. It's at the Father Pandozzi Mission. 3685 Benvolen Road, 8:30 to 4:30 each day. It's a fabulous show. It's put on by the Antique Power Okanagan Antique Power Club, which, they talk old steam engines, old tractors, and everybody's inventions. And I know that Jake Warkington was so involved with that. He's passed away, unfortunately. He's a good friend of mine. And it was so much fun to go there and see him demonstrating. He had a 1902 baler, hay baler, that he would run, and the mechanics, was incredible.
Easy.
What it was ingenious way of firing things up. But as time goes on, things improve. But anyway, it is a historical thing. It's at the Pandozzi, Father Pandozzi area there. I think the admission is very, very reasonable. They sell hot dogs too, Ken. Hot dogs and drinks and coffee and whatnot. So that's this coming weekend. We'll talk about it next Saturday morning, of course, because that's the day of it happening.
I love going to that. That's a heritage site too.
Well, it is a heritage. It was the very first European settlement in Kelowna. Father Pandozzi and his
the mission there.
And his. The other fathers that came with him came and fired up that mission. The first night they stayed here was at the foot of Duck Lake. Every time I go by Duck Lake, I think, oh, man. But, we have to recognize, of course, that they came along after 10,000 years of history of human beings living here, hunting and trading and fishing and whatnot, and Shiluk, the folks that were here. So... But it was an amazing thing for Europeans to come all this way and start a mission there. And interestingly, a number of years ago now, the Okanagan College was doing a dig close by, and they found in one of the Ramponi tomato fields, they found an old graveyard. Oh. And Mr. Ramponi put his plow into what he thought was a rock or something, dug down, and it was a post. So then he went along, and they were fence posts, and they were just old rotted fence posts that were there around this graveyard. So they got the ground penetrating radar out there, and they started digging, and they actually did find Father Pandozzi's resting place.
Wow!
I've got a picture of it actually. Yeah, and
love to see that.
So that's very historical. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Father Pandozzi planted the first apple trees in the Okanagan. See, we do tie it into gardening.
Yeah.
He planted the first apple trees in the Okanagan and fired that industry up. And he actually, I may not be totally accurate on this, but his last few days, he actually got on a horse. He was down doing some consoling or some last rites or something, some folks in Penticton. And he contracted pneumonia when he was there, and that's what killed him. And he got back, and he had pneumonia and whatnot. But interestingly too, at his grave, you notice that in those days, tooth decay was the big deal. It killed you. Tooth decay killed you. We're so fortunate today to be able to go to the dentist and get looked after and keep our teeth in good shape. We're digressing like crazy, Ken, but anyway, that's what we do. I've got a call into Ross McLeod. I want to get the proper name of that bitter melon and see if he can get back to me on that one. It's interesting, really, when you start looking into fruits and vegetables and whatnot on the internet, and we are so what we eat, what we go to the grocery store and buy, whether it's sweet potatoes, whether it's cherries, whether it's lettuce, whatever, it's just a minute level of stuff that we have here that people do consume all over the world.
And why not try something different just for fun? If you're blessed enough to have a space to grow some vegetables or some plants of some sort, why not try something different, something new, something unusual. And do a little reading if you can ahead of time.
That's right.
That will always help for sure. But why not?
And especially here in the Okanagan, if it needs hot, dry heat, we have it. But sometimes when you have something that needs hot, dry heat, we don't have enough length of time of the hot, dry heat, so you have to start them early. Start some of these things early in the greenhouse or in the
peanuts,
house.
Last year we did peanuts, and it was good. We had to start them around mid-February or so, get them up and going. We grew them as little plants in like a 1-gallon pot and got them up fair size. And then once they got about almost 12 inches high before we could plant them out, So it was a long time keeping them going indoors with help of a little bit of grow lighting and putting them out in the day and bringing them in because they really don't like the cold and they don't like cold soil. So by the time we got them out, they were doing okay. And they were fine,
Now, is that the northern variety of peanut that we used to sell at the nursery?
There's only really, I think, 2 common ones that we would grow in this region up here in Canada, but it's really just the one that has the shortest season, and that's sort of what you're shooting for. I think it says 99 days or something like that, or 110 days. And so, for us, that's okay, but it's got to be warm, and the soil's got to be warm. So, like this year, if you had peanuts, you wouldn't be putting them out not until you're into June. Yeah, and then by the time you're at the end of August or early September, that's it.
I'm going to get my soil thermometer out and just see what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, it doesn't help when it hailed the other day. I don't know if you got any hail.
We had a little bit of hail. Yeah,
we got about 1.5 inches deep of hail. That's got to cool the soil down a bit.
Yeah.
You made a little bit of headway, and now all of a sudden you've got a layer of ice over everything. The annuals were not super impressed. We had a big area of annuals sitting out, ready for heading out to properties. And they got beat up by the hail, and the canna lilies had holes through the leaves, and, just everything got a little beat up. And then that chill, they weren't impressed by the ice on them, So most annuals are tropical or subtropical, so,
Speaking of this, and I know we're on the air, and it doesn't really make sense for me to ask you this, but if you have a spare canna kicking around, I would love to have a canna lily because I want to put that in place of one of my bananas. I had the bananas out front, the 2 of them. I gave one of them away last year.
You need the big purple-leafed one.
Nice, strong.
I know where you can get them.
Okay.
I'll give you that. I'll have to give you
give me that info because I'd like to get them. And then, of course, once you've got cannas, they go from year to year.
Yeah.
Jack May, one of our listeners and dear friend of ours, former high school teacher, Jack gave me some calla. White and yellow callas, they are doing really well.
Yeah.
How's the one? Yours is up there?
It's about almost 3 feet high.
Is it bloomed? Which color you got?
It's white.
Yours is white. Okay.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Oh yeah.
But it's actually reblooming now.
Do they bloom through the season?
But they do eventually sort of quit. I think that would be the advantage of having a whole bunch of them, is that then you'd have them all, some coming on and some finishing, and you'd sort of have this continuous blast. But I don't believe that they're a late season thing unless they kind of die off
I'll
a
have
bit.
To talk to Jack. Maybe Jack's listening.
Jack's a pro. He would know.
He's the Calla pro, and if he can give us a call. We've got Pam joining us. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Saturday. What a beautiful day.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Lovely, yeah.
I always appreciate what you guys have to say about everything, whether I grow it or not. I am very grateful that I don't deal with deer in my yard at this point. They actually, I have seen them, popping tulips like popcorn, they just, but I know my yard happens to be fenced and just my locale, I'm a little immune to that at this point. Oh, we'll keep it that way.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yes, but I have a question about variegated irises. I have some blooming right now. They're the ones that smell like grape candy. They're just lovely. I just so adore the scent. But over the years, they have been diminishing in their prolific blooming. About 3-4 years ago, I had huge flushes of bloom, and now I've got like 3. So the crop is increasing. Like the area that it encompasses is larger than it used to be. What can I do to improve the production of blossoms?
That's an excellent question because it is common for irises to do that, is that they kind of spread, but they get weaker and weaker over time. And so what your goal is to keep them sort of consolidated into one area. And so what happens is as they spread, you'll see these clumps that look quite happy, and you'll get some blooms on them. And those ones that are blooming and are happy and look vigorous and the leaves are big, those are the chunks you want to keep for the next growing period. So the growing period for those is generally about 3 to 4 years. But every 3 to 4 years, you want to dig them up and reset them back in again. And that resetting of them rejuvenates them. And generally, I've often said, August is iris month, and so that's the reality seems to be that if you can do them in early August and lift them up and get rid of the scruffy ones or the ones that have rotted rhizomes, sometimes on the surface they go kind of cruddy. So you kind of go through those and you sort them out and you get some chunks that are about 10 to 12 inches in diameter, and they have multiple buds all still interconnected at the base and some pretty strong foliage, and dig them out, keep those aside, chuck all the stuff that's not great, re-prepare your area maybe with just a little bit of compost, because it doesn't have to be like crazy rich or anything, but sort of, you're digging it up and refreshing the soil a little bit, and then putting them back into the middle and not having any competition around them, and then just putting the soil around, burying them shallow, watering them in, and then just let them ride through August. And through August and September, they root in and they start to kind of get their bearings a little bit and get established. And then when winter comes, they'll set bud again. And then the next year, you'll get some bloom, and it'll be usually pretty strong. But the following year will be outstanding. It's always that second year where they're just super strong. And then you follow that cycle. So then the third year, they're pretty good. They're just as good as on that first year, but they're bigger. And on the fourth year, they start to kind of get a little bit weaker. And then on the fifth year, they're not as great. But
so about every 3 years, you want to lift them?
I'd say sort of that fourth, 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So if you have a bunch of irises, you can kind of do every second clump. So you always have one that's performing at peak.
Pam, we've got to run. We've got to take this break. But we always appreciate your call. And it's always insightful. Your garden is beautiful. And how is your Calicarpa doing?
It is coming back.
Mine too.
Coming back.
Mine too.
I think now I'm going to go with my pruning shears and prune back everything that's not looking like it's got life on it, because I've given it a chance. But there's some really good new growth. But, I'm just so sad for it starting over again.
Well, at least it could start over. It's like got 9 lives. It's like cats. Okay.
Something like that.
Got to go. Take care, Pam.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye
Thanks
now.
for calling.
Yeah. We're a little late getting there, but we're going to take a short break. We've got Jack waiting online. I'm hoping it's Jack, the Cala guy.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to Jack when we come back with more of The Garden Show.
Alrighty, we are back with you. It's a lovely day here in the Okanagan. Hopefully it's just as nice in Penticton and just as nice in Victoria. I'm not sure, but hey, if somebody calls in, they can give us a little weather update where you're at and let us know how your garden's growing.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to hear from the folks in Victoria. But we've got Jack joining us. Jack, good morning.
Yes.
It is Jack.
Hi, guys. Excuse me. It's rather flattering to be referred to as an expert, but really with Calas, I just bought half a dozen or a few more about 7 or 8 years ago, and it stuck them in the ground, and they breed like rabbits. They're just I've got about 30 or 40. I've got too many to put in, but I found spaces for them. And they're all coming up. They're not like yours because you had yours indoors in pots.
Yeah, in the greenhouse.
Now,
Now,
a little
Jack.
cooler, so they're a little bit behind, but they're coming. They're going to be nice and showy in July and August.
So do they bloom through the season? I mean, how long do they keep coming on?
They don't last as long as the cannas do, but they stay green right until the frost comes.
Okay.
They'll still have green, but the flowers themselves last, 4 or 5 weeks, and they're beautiful white. They're like ceramic. They're white and they're yellow, and they're really gorgeous.
Oh, they are. I'm really enjoying these, and I've got them planted. Some of them planted in my friend Dwayne's planter that he built, and
they're beautiful.
Anyway, that's great, and I really appreciate them. First time I've ever grown them. I mean, Cala's been around for years and that, and now I can consider myself somebody a little bit more knowledgeable on Calas than I have been over the years.
I'm certain you're very knowledgeable on almost everything, the two of you. You were talking about the rain. Some people might, which is what I did. Unfortunately, I did it on Wednesday, or was it Thursday when the big rain came? I think it was Wednesday. But I have my beautiful petunia pots on rollers, and I had the foresight to bring them under cover.
Yep.
And so they didn't get that was a dreadful rain. That would have really crushed them. So
yes.
They're looking great. I take them in, bring them out. Not inside, but under cover.
It's dreadful.
They're very happy about that.
Dreadful.
As far as the deer are concerned, I know Ken doesn't really like magic potions being offered over the radio, but this deer spray of an egg and water, a liter of water and an egg, and about I don't measure, a tablespoon of baking soda, and you mix that all up in a blender, put it in a bottle and a sprayer, and let it fester in the sun for a few days. And
I love that fester.
You just spray it on. It doesn't hurt. Some people say, well, why don't you put cayenne pepper in it? Well, cayenne pepper, I'm sure, the petals of roses and petunias and things like that, it would burn them quite badly, so I don't do that. But the other stuff is good. I left some in a bottle, a closed bottle, over the winter time, and I opened that up. Boy, that was ripe. And I mixed it with a little of the new stuff, and I put it on the trouble is the rain does blow it away, and the darn deer did get after 3 of my prize roses pretty good.
Oh, boy. Well, I tell you, you had a derogatory adjective for the rain. I love the rain. I know it's.
I said, "Oh, darn rain."
I forget
it. Well, it wasn't darn rain. It was really good, and everything is growing. And I look around the city as I drive around and ride my bike around, and the rain has certainly done a great job cleaning up the lawns and making the flowers grow. Now with a little sunlight, hot warmth, and they'll really grow.
Oh, everything's going to go. Jack, we got to take another call here, but we love hearing from you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, buddy. Bye.
Thanks, Jack. Bye-bye.
And we have Bonnie from Victoria calling. Bonnie, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for talking to me. Mm-hmm. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, nice.
Welcome to the show.
So I live on a farm in Saanich and have a whole pile of gardens to look after. Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm trying to deal with this year is bluebells. And I don't know if anybody else has this, but they seem to be taking over the property. And I'm wondering if anybody else is having this or if there's anything to be done about it. They just keep spreading.
Yeah, it's one of the campanula families, and it's quite aggressive. I think here and everywhere. It's what happens is there's sort of this tame little plant that seems to show up here and there, and it's kind of semi-wild looking, but when it blooms, it's lovely. These beautiful little chains of blue flowers. But unfortunately, what they're really doing is trying to take over the planet because they just keep spreading and spreading, and all of a sudden they make these big leaps forward. And I think it's early in the spring, and they send out these rhizomes underground, and they creep along, and then they shoot up, and they can be one of the most aggressive weeds that you can come across. So. Unfortunately, once you have them, it's a little trickier to manage. But if you can get them when you first identify them, I think the key is learn what that looks like, and then don't let it ever come into your yard. Mm-hmm. But once you have it, you can try digging it out. You can use, you sometimes have to hire a professional company to come in that does spray applications. I don't know. It just depends how badly you want to get rid of it.
And it depends on where your weed problem is. But my technique, well, especially in the Okanagan when we get some really hot sun, the technique of putting a clear poly over the bed, making a greenhouse, a very short greenhouse, like about 6 inches high with little posts holding it up, and then sealed right off, and so that the sun will beat down on that. And boy, it's amazing how that can cook some weeds, and especially the weeds that don't go too deep in their root system. Now, the other thing that I've seen done, again, if you've got them in an area where you can do this, put black poly down, and the roots they come up the surface looking for light. So then you can take the black poly off, scrape those roots off, dispose of them properly, and then put the poly back on again and let them come up. And before you know it, you have really diminished the population of that weed. But that's only done when you've got an area with only bluebells or quackgrass or mare's tail or bindweed, and that's you want to control that area. Once these things get mixed in with your plants, it's a tough call.
Oh my gosh, is it ever? Yeah, we've dug out, it seems like hundreds of wheelbarrow fulls of them, but they're the bulbs. I didn't realize they actually travel by rhizome.
Oh.
It feels like the bulbs are there and they have almost like a little fur coat on them to get through the winter.
Okay, well, this is the other factor too, is making sure we're getting accurate identification. So we do always say that, if you know where there are some, especially if they're flowering, is to take some pictures of them and email them to us.
Yeah.
So because then we can get a positive identification and make sure we're getting you the right information. Because the weeds that you have in different areas may or may not be the same as other areas. When we use a common name like bluebells, it doesn't, there's probably a lot of plants called that. So just to be more accurate, I would say, take a picture and you can send it to myself.
Okay, that's good. So what these are bulbs. Like there's usually a big one and then a bunch of little ones. They go down really deep but come up, and then it seems like all of those little bell flowers turn into little seed pods.
Are they blue or are they white?
Blue.
They're blue. Okay.
Yep. Send a picture and we'll pause it, and then we can be a little bit more helpful.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, dear. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Very important.
Yeah, it is important. But we talk about this common name thing all the time. I mean, creeping Jenny and bluebells and that kind of thing.
Yeah, when we hear bluebells, we're usually thinking Campanula
family.
But Campanula is a huge family, and,
yeah.
and most of it is fabulous. Great plants.
Oh,
but
yeah.
There's a couple that are weeds that we have to be careful of, and it wants to take over. And but these ones that are, if they're a bulb, the thing with bulbs is that the bulb will last and last and last, even if it has no light or no matter what. It's going to often survive for a year.
That's not going to work for that. Yep.
May not work as good,
We're at the bottom of the hour, Ken. We're going to take a short break. We invite your calls, 250-862-2525 to get through us locally here, 1-888-780-4273 if you're calling from out of town, Victoria area, or anywhere online. And we will be back with The Garden Show after this short break. Okie dokie, back to the phone lines. We've got Jan calling in from Lake Country. Hi, Jan.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
I'm phoning from Winfield, Lake Country, wherever.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I would have a question. I have a perennial hydrangea, which I moved this spring because it didn't like the heat and the sun. But do I trim the dead stalks off? There is a little tiny bit of green coming up from the base.
Yeah, they froze off over last winter, just with that severe winter we had, and so a lot of the hydrangeas are doing that. Snip off the dead stuff and just let it push up from the bottom. You can give it a little bit of fertilizer now that it's starting to get green, and that'll help to push it up and get it to size back up again. You may or may not get blooms on it this year, depending on the variety. But if you can get it to get back into being a decent size, and then if you can make the winters just a little warmer, we would have a much better success next year.
Now in the fall, do I cover them up with something like cloth or
Yeah.
Well, Jan, it sounds like you've got a macrophylla, which is the less hardy of the groups of hydrangeas.
Okay.
It's the big-leafed hydrangea. Is it like a pink or a blue, that kind of?
It was a pinky white, and
blush.
Yeah, sort of. And the flowers were very poor last year when I got it. Like the flowers weren't probably any bigger than a teacup kind of thing, not even that big. So I thought it didn't like where I planted it because I planted it right in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some hydrangeas are fine in the sun.
Yeah. I would say that more than anything, it's that tough winter. And, all our shrubs and plants need to grow for a few years before they get into that stride, where they're really performing and looking great. And it just kind of hurts when you get a bad winter and it gets frozen down to the ground. And so now, like I say, it's just a recovery program. And those varieties are generally grown in a partial shady location, so either shade or part sun. And they do love nice, rich soil, so adding some compost around them a little bit is always nice.
Okay. I also have another question. I have eating grapes, and they really got nailed, I guess, with that frost and cold weather. They're starting to show leaves. So do I just leave them?
Just let them go and see what didn't make it. Most of the Labrusca types, the himrods, interleukin, they are going to be fine. But boy, I've seen devastation out there with some of the vinifera's, the European grapes, dead to the root from that cold, and it's very, very scary and disappointing for the vineyards, for the wineries and whatnot. But those eating grapes that you have there should be fine.
Okay. There's very few leaves, like on the old shoots. There's leaves, but the actual trunk or the older wood, as per se, there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's really very sparse.
Yeah. Listen to Ken's patience video, and
exactly.
he has a patience video. Be patient, folks.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you're going to have to do with that grape.
Okay.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome.
Day.
Thanks for the call. We appreciate it. And we're going to talk to Wendy from Lake Country. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I just had a couple of comments. That lady who was talking about bluebells, my suspicion is it's grape hyacinth.
Yeah.
And because by the way she pulls them up and there's a bigger bud and then a bunch of tiny buds around it, and the way she described the seeds on the stem, I'm pretty sure it's grape hyacinth. But rather than pulling them out, I wait till the seeds mature and I pull all the seeds off and I just throw them. And
proliferate
them. It takes a couple of years for them to bloom, but every year I just throw them, and I want them all. I want my whole garden filled with them because when they're blooming, there's not a lot of other stuff blooming, and they just look gorgeous. You can, after a while, you get a solid bed of them in the spring. It's really pretty nice.
And it is, you dig them out to get rid of them basically and the bulbs themselves.
I would never do that.
No.
The other thing I wanted to do, and I haven't even mentioned this to Ken, but I wanted to talk about the deer. Where we live, the deer come down usually in the winter and the early spring, and they like to eat all the things that are left in the garden. And if the tulips are up, they love tulips, so they'll graze them. But usually it's early enough they don't get the bulbs. So we have these tulips come up with hardly any green around them, but they bloom. But yesterday, like by now we don't see any deer. They're gone by now. Yesterday I was up in our upper garden and I was bending down pulling grass, and I heard something and I stood up and looked, and about 6 feet away from me was this deer.
Oh, geez.
Which we never see it this time of year. So I started screaming at it, "Get out of here, get out of here," and it just looked at me. It didn't move, and so I got really close and I banged a stick against something. And it kind of turned around, and get out of here. I'm sure the neighbors were thinking, what is she doing? And I had to chase it all the way down, like within a few feet of it, screaming, all the way down, across, and then onto the lower bank where it stopped to browse a little bit because there's so much blooming. So I had to go down there and scream and yell. And he went across the road and into my neighbor's yard and down the hill. So they are still around, and they are really liking the garden stuff that's coming up, like lettuce, and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a bit depressing to see a deer, and it's almost June. But just wanted to share that. Don't give up. They might still be around.
Yeah,
the neighbors, when they heard you screaming, "Get out of here!" They might have think you're talking to
They
Ken.
thought it was Ken.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite annoying.
That's it. Get out of here.
Yeah, that's right. I got it.
Very,
okay.
very annoying to
Wendy,
be around.
appreciate the call as always.
Okay, guys.
Take care.
See you later.
Thanks for
Bye.
calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, there's my sweet wife.
Yeah, Wendy. She's an avid gardener and
yeah.
worked with us at Burnett's as well as you did
Years
back
ago.
in the days. Yeah, it was.
and she had tons of experience before that.
Yeah. Oh,
she
yeah.
was
No, she
big
was
market gardener and growing perennials. And
she was
she's
a welcome
probably
employee. That's
one
for
of
sure.
the top perennial experts, I would say, in the valley for sure. Yeah, it's great. Somehow we linked up. A couple gardeners got together. How about that, eh? What are the odds?
That was before LinkedIn was on, too.
Yeah, that's right.
250-862-2525 to join us here if you live in the Okanagan or near in the Kelowna area. 1-888-780-4273 if you're listening from a distance, either from Victoria or anywhere online. We are here to answer your gardening questions and just discuss gardening. I mean, it's not like a matter of you calling in, asking a garden question, because we can or can't answer it. We try our best. But we always enjoy hearing people's stories of their gardening experience, because that's really what makes the show, makes us tick. I've often said it's like two gardeners standing at the back fence comparing notes and having some fun with that. And so do give us a call. We'll have that chat here, right here online. We've got Addie calling in. And good morning, Addie. Nice to hear from you.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Gorgeous day in West Kelowna.
It is nice out.
It's a gorgeous day. It really is. And it was lovely rain. Did you get some rain over there, too?
Got lots of rain, and unfortunately, I was away for the day, and all my planters, my wine barrel planters, were all. I don't think they were very happy with me. They forgot to bring their life jackets with them, so they kind of floated a bit. But however, you know what? The sun will get rid of it.
That'll get rid of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just enjoyed the rain. Okay, remember I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about my avocado, and I sent you a picture, Ken, about the little white shavings on my leaves.
Yeah.
And I've wiped them down, and they're fine. But the new leaves that come up are getting these guys again. Where do they come from if I've been diligently wiping them down?
Well, they're hanging out right in the cracks and crevices of the very, very tip. And the very tip growth is very, very soft, but it's protective, inside the leaves as they're opening. There's little aphids living inside there. And so what happens is as fast as they're opening, there's more of them crawling up and getting into that new growth. So that you can't even touch that stuff because it's too delicate. It's
exactly
fragile.
Well, that's just it. So do I wait till it matures a little bit? And the funny part about it is that the new ones are black instead of white.
Yeah, and they can be slightly different variety, but typically they are just standard aphids. Aphids will change color depending on their situation a little bit. Sometimes they'll start out green and turn to black. But the thing is I think we were talking about this in the past about you pinching the top out of that plant. You did that?
I pinched it already.
And now do you have more than one shoot then?
No, I've only got the one shoot so far.
Oh, okay. Well, keep an eye on that. You might want to pinch it out again after a little bit here, but just keep up that diligence. The other thing you can do is you can take the tip and sort of put your hand out and bend it over slightly and tap it with your finger, as if you were, say, flicking a cigarette, and tap it into your hand. And then aphids have this response to vibrations like that and tapping where they just let go and fall to the ground. So sometimes even if they're in between leaves or things and you start tapping it, they'll sometimes just fall out. And so, but you kind of have to just lightly bend it over a little bit so you can get your hand under it, right? And then you can see.
Them.
I do that with roses sometimes. Like I'll take a rosebud, and the rosebud is just covered in aphids. So I just bend it over my hand a bit and just tap it with my finger like a cigarette, like you're flicking a cigarette, and just tapping it, and all the aphids fall right into the palm of my hand. And then I just do a quick clap of the hands, that's it. They're all gone. And
Okay,
but they.
Yeah, you just, it's funny that you asked me if I have another little thing coming out. Yes, I do, actually. I'm just looking at the plant. And it's where I pinched it off, there's another little guy starting out from there.
Yeah. They'll usually, once you pinch them, they usually split into two or into four, like they branch out, right? And so
that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, and that's what you want to happen. But right now, I'd say we just let it roll for a while, but keep on doing what you're doing. And that about once a week or so, you want to use a damp cloth on that, wiping the tops and the bottoms of the leaves. And that just keeps spider mites off, keeps aphids off, any mealy bugs.
So, flick and wipe.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Addie.
Just a quick question. For Mother's Day, I got a fig tree.
Oh, nice.
Like a real, like a Turkish fig, or was this the?
It's called a fignomenal. Fignomenal. Fignomenal.
Yeah.
Tasty fruit, eat fresh and jelly.
Oh, yeah, it's a Turkish,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just leave it outside for the whole summer.
Yes.
And get it in a bigger pot, I think, if it's in too small of a pot. They'll go in like a 10-inch pot or something like that. Or
get them in a nice sized pot. And Addie,
12.
in the wintertime, you've got to protect it. It doesn't have to necessarily go in the house. As a matter of fact, you don't want to do that. But if you've got a cool shed or a cool building that you can... and then if the weather does get extremely cold, you can take it and put it in the house just for those 2 or 3 nights, and then take it back out into the shed again.
Well, I've got a heater in that shed, so I can always
turn that on. Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Perfect.
I appreciate your call.
Guys.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, Eddie.
Bye-bye. And we're going to take a break now. We'll be back for the last segment of the Garden Show. Give us a call. We're here to answer your gardening questions. We'll be back with the Garden Show after this short break. Hello, we're back on the air, Ken. Ken and I, in the break, all we do is
looking
talk
at
plants,
pictures,
looking at pictures of plants trying to identify them.
Oh, yeah.
And Ken is sick and tired of the number of plants out there. We'll never learn them all, but he's not sick and tired. He says he is, but he's not.
I'm still studying every day.
250-862-2525. We've got a few minutes left. 1-888-780-4273 to get through to us here on the Garden Show this morning. We are here to answer your gardening questions. Just want to remind you, the 27th annual flower show put on by the Kelowna Garden Club is happening about a month from now on June 29th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is a great show, and it's a great garden that it's held in. The Gushican Gardens are very historical, owned by the, first of all, the Lord and Lady Aberdeen owned the property, and then, of course, the Cameron family took over and started raising cattle and sheep and whatnot on the farm. Interestingly enough, I've mentioned this before, but I do have Elaine Cameron's diary. Very fortunate to have a copy of it. And I've been categorizing and writing it down so that it's, her writing, of course, a very British handwriting, so some of it's very difficult to decipher, but I get through it. And May 31st, just to give you an idea, May 31st, 1953, her entry was, rained, freshened everything. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It does. In the Okanagan, it freshens things up. Got 2 begonias from Burnett's and planted them. Cut the edge of the house lawn. Every day she writes something in that diary. I am trying my best to do the same thing with my greenhouse diary and my gardening diary. But you have to be a diary type person,
Yeah.
And I do write down lots of stuff, and that was my tip of the week. Boy, write down what you're doing, because it's so interesting to look back the following year. You look back the year before and say, when did I put that jacaranda out? What day was that? When did I turn the heat off in the greenhouse? When did I plant the peppers, my early peppers?
Especially seeding dates. Even though it does vary a little bit from year to year, it's still good to know. And to see the results of what happened.
Yeah.
Do you need to do it 2 weeks earlier, or do you need to do it 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And seeding in the garden. I mean, I know exactly when I put my first radishes in this year. I know exactly when I harvested them, when they were ready for harvest, and I know exactly when I put the second run in.
Yeah.
And same with my bunching onions and things like that. You put that. Documentation is really great. I'm not the best diary keeper, but I do the weather every morning. I come out. I've got an indoor-outdoor thermometer, digital thermometer that I look at, and I know exactly how cold it got outside, how cold it got in the greenhouse. I document that every day, and it's been very, very helpful in many regards to planning for next year, planning the garden. And it's ideal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we had Scott Austin call in earlier there from Summerland, and he was giving us an update on the Summerland Ornamental Gardens, and that they're going to be having a tour out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you made notes.
I did.
You were writing this down.
I did. It's
the dates and times on that one. I think it's next.
It's next weekend. This coming weekend after this one.
Yeah, Saturday.
And 1 to 3 on the Saturday. And the Summerland Ornamental Gardens. And it is a gentleman that is an expert person from UBC that is a tree arborist gentleman, and he's going to give a tour of the gardens there and an explanation of the various trees and probably other things too, but the trees in particular. So I think it's very, very going to be very, very interesting. I'm considering myself, see if I can get out there to see that myself.
Yeah,
to attend, perhaps at the 1 o'clock one in the afternoon. That gives me time to get back and get some work done.
1 at 1 and 1 at 3.
Yeah, 1 at 1, 1 at 3. They're 90-minute talks.
Yeah, you can just go and show up at the gardens there, and if they offer for donations, please donate.
Oh yeah,
because it is. It's important to keep those gardens going, and they're definitely all non-profit there. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The weather has been a little different this year. I've noticed very, very much that in general it's cooler. I think that's a good thing because
the blooms last so much longer. Right?
Yeah, it's a good thing in many regards. And one of the big things, of course, is last year I remember how dry and hot it was in May, June, even
July,
April, May,
August,
June, and then it just the rains never came, and we had a devastating season for fire. And I'm hoping this year that's different. Now we do have a water shortage issue because the snowpack has not been that good. So we got to be very, very careful of our water resources. However, I think in general the moisture in the forests is a little better this year. They're saying it's not that hasn't penetrated deep enough to really make a big difference.
No,
but it's better than last year.
Yeah,
that's all I can
this
say.
Is a difference. You know, we have listeners from the coastal area and from the desert valley here, or we're semi-arid desert in this climate, and they're quite total opposites, polar opposites. That's for sure. But we all suffer from water shortage these days, so we really have to do our best to support our local communities.
It's been dry down the coast too, though.
Oh yeah,
last year very, very dry. And it's very, very important. Water is the lifeblood of the country, lifeblood of the gardening industry, lifeblood of agriculture. Nice. It's just very, very important. Water resources are very, very important. And so that tells you, plant some areas of your garden that don't take too much water. And the Okanagan Xeriscape people can help you with that and help you organize that kind of thing. Even if it's not the entire yard, just start with some areas where you can turn the irrigation off and do it naturally. On that note, we are going to do the tips and the plants of the week.
You betcha.
My tip of the week, of course, is keeping a diary, keeping a gardening diary. Keep notes so that you can look back on them. I find it quite interesting to look back, and then I'm disappointed. I'll look back, when did I plant that last year? And it wasn't written down, and I'm disappointed. So to avoid disappointment, folks, write things down and have a nice little diary. You can buy actually log books for the garden and that, but I find just a regular sheet, like Elaine Cameron did back in the day. Simple system. My plant of the week is the Aquilegia or Columbine group, as Ken will put them. It's a group of great plants, the Columbine group. And that's my tips and plants.
Yeah, my tip of the week this week is that with the cool weather and a little bit of rain, it does help us catch up on watering a little bit here in the Okanagan. Often the deeper you dig, the drier it gets. The soil just turns to powder, and so we do appreciate that. But on the same time, plants, when the temperatures are cool, are using a lot less water, so we don't have to be watering all the time. So if you can, and check the weather forecast, but shut your irrigation timer off for a couple days here and there just to get a little bit more water savings in there. It's always greatly appreciated. All right, now my plant of the week is the iris group, and you see irises everywhere in full bloom, all different colors, all different sizes. Some are earlier, some are later, and just a super easy plant to grow, fragrant and lovely. One of my favorites. That's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com and Grower Coach on YouTube.
You bet you can. Another good show. We really appreciate being here every Saturday morning, and the day is going to be great. I'm going to be able to go home, do some work, and you're working, of course, this busy time of year for you, Ken, and you're out there doing your thing. But I do have a Shigo quote, which we do every week. Dr. Shigo was the father of modern arboriculture, and he says this: "Consider poor Joe, who liked alcohol. He drank methanol rather than ethanol. He quickly learned, as his brain got burned, that words were important after all." We'll see you next week with The Garden Show.